All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 7:39 in the p.m. We're calling this meeting to order of the West Valley Water District Board of Directors. It's Thursday, June 1st, and we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Dan, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd be happy to. Right hand over your heart, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for our invocation, we have Minister Ryan Payne from the Tri-City Church. Minister, if you'll please lead us in the opening invocation.
Yes. Let us bow. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to come and to meet today. We ask that you would give us guidance. We ask that you would give us leadership, dear God. We ask that you would continue to make a way for us. We ask that you would just lead us and guide us, and that your will be done throughout this meeting, throughout this time that we have come together, God. We thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Amen. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please do the roll call of board members?
President Young, at this time I would like to take an oral roll call and request that each board member respond with present when their name is called. Director Garcia?
Present.
Director Hawkins?
Present.
Director Moore?
Present.
Thank you. Vice President Jenkins?
Present.
And President Young.
Present.
All board members are present. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Next up, we have the adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion on the agenda?
Motion.
Motion.
I second that motion.
First by Director Hawkins, a second by Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you. We'll take an oral vote. Director Garcia?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Moore?
Yes.
President Jenkins?
Yes.
And President Young.
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Before we do public participation, I did want to say something. At last meeting's agenda, I brought up a concern that I had to the board. I'm not someone who pretends like I'm blameless and never do anything the wrong way. The way I brought it up, I should have brought it up differently. I do want to apologize to my fellow board members, to the committee, to all of staff, to anyone who felt like in any way I was trying to attack them or any such thing. That was not my intention. I just wanted to raise a concern that I had to the board, so I did want to publicly, just on the record, just say I'm sorry. I didn't really mean it to come off in that fashion, and I'm truly sorry if I offended anyone. So with that, we'll go into public participation. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Members of the public may participate and give public comment in one of four ways. In person at West Valley Water District's Administrative Boardroom located at 855 West Baseline Road in Rialto, by filling out a public comment card and submitting it to the board secretary prior to the start of public comment period. Also via telephone by calling the following number and access code 888-475-4499, access code 840-293-7790, via Zoom with access code 840-293-7790, or submitting an email to the board secretary prior to the start of the meeting to administration@wvwd.org. Thank you.
All right. Have we received any written communication?
We have not received anything in person via email. There is a raised hand icon on Zoom.
Okay. Jeff, you're up. Floor is yours,
Yes,
sir.
thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank you again for the opportunity for our firm to interview for general counsel position. And it was nice to actually meet all of you in person. And regardless of what happens at the end of the process, I look forward to seeing all of you at various water events and other community events in the future. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. Do we have anyone else on Zoom who would like to address the body? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public participation. That'll bring us to this evening. We had a presentation for our May legislative update. We have, I believe, the senators on the Zoom. Sir, you would like to unmute yourself. Do we have a
Yes.
PowerPoint?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Great. Well, let me begin by thanking the staff as well as the committee chair of the External Affairs. I have prepared a legislative update. I would like to go page by page, but not in full detail unless there are questions in the interest of time. Let me begin with the first slide, the water supply conditions. I'm under the impression that you all have received this. And so this report, the water supply conditions, the Department of Water has conducted its fifth snow survey of the season. And it appears that the statewide water through May 30th, 2023 is about 31 inches, which is 139% of the average for this time period. Based on these numbers, California is at 131% of the average of the full water year, which ends September of 2023. With regards to the next slide, unless there's questions, feel free to interrupt or just go ahead and ask the questions as I proceed. The State Water Project allocation on April 20th, the Department of Water Resources announced another increase in forecast for the State Water Project deliveries this year. The department now expects to deliver 100% of requested water supplies, up from 30% first forecasted in January and 75% forecasted in March. This 100% allocation forecast considers the snowpack and reservoir storage data from April, current hydrology conditions, spring runoff forecasts, and anticipation of dry conditions ahead. With the next slide, the groundwater. Well, winter storms have helped the snowpack and reservoirs. Groundwater basins are much slower to recover. Many rural areas are still experiencing water supply challenges, especially communities that rely on groundwater supply, which has been depleted due to the prolonged drought. Long-term drought conditions in the Colorado River Basin will also continue to impact the water supply for millions of Californians. As of today, the groundwater monitoring wells are showing that 51% of the wells are well below normal levels, 31 are at normal levels, an increase of 2% points from the last report, and 18% are above normal levels. Statewide reservoir storage at the end of January is 108% of average. Storage can vary significantly based, obviously, on the size of the reservoir and its purpose. The next slide, funding for electric vehicle charging projects. In December of 2022, the California Energy Commission approved $2.9 billion investment plan to accelerate California's 2025 electric vehicle charging and hydrogen refueling goals. The funds will support the deployment of thousands of zero-emission trucks, school buses, and transit buses to deliver clean benefits to communities hit hardest by the impacts of pollution from medium and heavy-duty vehicles. The 22-23 investment plan update increases funding for the California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program by 30 times, with an additional $2.4 billion from the recent over the next 4 years, and with at least 50% targeted to benefit priority populations. The California Energy Commission staff estimates the plan will result in 90,000 new EV chargers across the state, more than double the 80,000 chargers installed today. Combined with the funding of utilities and other programs, these investments are expected to increase the state's archives, its goal to deploy 250,000 chargers by 2025. The next slide is the 2022-23 investment plan. The plan approved includes $1.7 million for medium and heavy duty SEV infrastructure, $900 million for light duty EV charging infrastructure, $118 million for the ZEV manufacturing, $90 million for hydrogen refueling infrastructure, $97 million for emerging opportunities such as aviation, locomotive, marine vessels, and other vehicle grid integrations. It also approves $15 million of zero and near zero carbon fuel production and supplies, $15 million for low carbon fuels, and $10 million for workforce development. These funds will become available over the next 4 years and distributed to projects through a mix of competitive funding solicitations and direct funding agreements. Projects include direct incentive and rebate programs for individuals and businesses. The next slide is the California Electric Infrastructure Project. The California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Project provides funding for installing publicly available EV charging stations. These projects are funded through the California Energy Commission Clean Transportation Program, which supports innovations in transportation and fuel technology. The VIP 1.0 block grant provides $180 million in EV charging rebates. In addition, the CSE helped recruit an additional $37 million in regional partner funding. The Cal EV IP 2.2 had $30 million in rebates available through the Golden State Priority Project. Unfortunately, the window to apply for this funding has closed. The next slide addresses the governor's May revise. Governor Newsom released the May revision to his proposed 23-24 California state budget on May 12th, projecting a $31.5 billion shortfall, up from the projected $22.5 billion shortfall in January. The administration proposes to resolve the shortfall through a series of spending reductions, triggered cuts, and delays or deferrals of funding authorized in early years, as well as through internal borrowing and fund shifts. The $224 billion general fund spending plan would protect many ongoing investments made in prior years, mostly maintains the state reserves that are projected to total $37.2 billion, and rejects raising revenues to continue to invest in California. The May revision of the budgets and $90 million in new flood proposals, $125 million to support preparedness, response, and recovery related to the 2023 storms, funding shift from drought contingencies to flood contingencies to address the weather whiplash California is facing, $75 million to support local flood control projects, $25 million to expand current California small agricultural Business Drought Relief Grant Program, $25 million for potential additional disaster relief and response costs in the fiscal year to address immediate impacts, $40 million for the San Joaquin floodplain restoration. The $290 million is on top of the governor's January proposal of $202 million in flood investments to protect urban areas, improve levees in the Delta region, and support projects in Central Valley, bringing the total flood investment to nearly $500 million. The governor's budget also includes proposed legislation that codifies provisions from recent executive orders that allow for safe diversion of flood flows for groundwater recharge purposes. These provisions would make it easier to capture floodwater to recharge groundwater by setting clear conditions for diverting floodwater without permits or affecting water rights. The next slide, legislation. Friday, April 28th was the policy by all legislation had to policy committee in its House of Origin. The following are few highlights of bills that we have been monitoring. The next slide, bonds. The governor has opened the door for negotiations over a resource bond. There are numerous bills that have been introduced to provide the legislature's priorities for bond funding. These include AB 1567, Garcia. The bill would provide a general obligation bond to go before the voters in March 2024 that would authorize $16 billion for safe drinking water, wildfire protection, drought preparation, flood protection, extreme clean energy, and workforce development programs. The bill has been ordered to the Senate.
Right.
AB 30, yes? Question?
No question.
No question.
AB 305, the bill would provide general obligation bond of $4.5 billion to go on the November 2024 ballot to fund flood protection projects. The bill has been ordered to the Senate. SB 638, the bill would provide a general obligation bond to go before the voters on the November 2024 ballot that would authorize $6 billion for climate and flood protection. The bill has been ordered to the Assembly. SB 867, the bill would provide $15.5 billion general obligation bond to go before the voters in November to fund drought, flood, water resiliencies, and variety of natural resources related projects. The bill has been ordered to the Assembly. Next slide, water rights. Last fall, the Shasta River Association illegally diverted water from Shasta River for several weeks. The California State Water Resources Control Board issued a curtailment order, but the association continued pumping. At some point, the pumping reduced the flow by half. Ultimately, the Water Board issued a fine that amounted to $50 per farmer for the diversion. Reports by Berkeley Law and the Planning Conservation League have called for reforming the water rights process. As a result of these issues, there are numerous bills introduced that seek to enhance the Water Board's authority for dealing with curtailments and addressing water rights.
Wow.
Those that oppose the bills state the bills deny senior water holders due process and provide the Water Board overly broad authority. AB 460, the bill grants the State Water Resources Control Board the authority to issue interim relief orders to enforce the reasonable use doctrine, comma, the public trust doctrine, water rights, and other provisions of water. The bill increases penalties for violations from 500 per day to 10,000 per day and 2,500 per acre foot of water illegally diverted. The bill has passed the Assembly and is in the Senate waiting for referral to committee. The district has taken an opposed position and has registered a letter of opposition to this measure, along with numerous organizations and other entities. AB 1337, the bill would expand the instances when diversion or use of water is considered a trespass, punishable as a crime. The bill has passed the Assembly and is in the Senate waiting for referral to a committee. SB 361, the bill would require the Department of Water Resources to install, upgrade, reactivate stream gauges in California waterways to determine how much water is being moved through the state. Water data is necessary to determine appropriate water rights. The bill is pending in Senate appropriations. SB 389 by Allen, the bill would authorize the Water Board to investigate the diversion and use of water from water right holders to determine whether the diversion is based on appropriate water rights. The bill passed the Senate and is in the Assembly waiting for referral to committee. Water planning. AB 62, this bill would establish a statewide goal to increase above and below groundwater by 3.7 million acre feet by 2030, pending in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. SB 23, Caballero, the bill seeks to streamline the permitting process for water supply and flood risk projects. This bill is pending in the Senate Appropriations Committee. SB 366, Caballero, the bill requires the Department of Resources to establish an advisory committee to expand to include tribes and environmental justice interests to develop a comprehensive plan for addressing the state's water needs and meeting specific water supply targets established by the bill for the purpose of the California Water Plan. It would establish long-term water supply targets for the state to achieve, require a cost analysis and financing plan to meet the goals of the plan, and establish an advisory committee to achieve these targets in consultation with water agencies, wastewater service providers. The bill also requires DWR to provide an oral and written report to the legislature each year regarding progress made towards meeting the water supply targets. SB 366 would complement and amplify Governor Newsom's water supply strategy and is sponsored by the California Water. The bill passed the Senate and is pending referral in the Assembly. SB 659, California Water Supply Solutions Act of 2023 would establish the California Supply Solutions Act, among other things, require the Department of Water Resources to develop a groundwater recharge action plan by January 1, 2026. The plan would provide actionable recommendations that result in the ability to create an additional groundwater recharge capacity of 10,000 acre feet by December 31st, 2035. The bill would require the department to consult with the State Water Resources Control Board, the 9 regional water quality control boards, committee, which may be enlarged to carry out these provisions. The bill required the Groundwater Recharge Action Plan to identify and make recommendations on immediate opportunities and potential long-term solutions to increase the state's groundwater supply. It also requires specified actions with regards to the Groundwater Recharge Action Plan, including, among other things, requiring the department to include it as part of the 2028 update to the California Water Plan, and to update the Groundwater Recharge Action Plan at the same time they prepare updates to the California Water Plan. The bill would require the department and water boards, upon an appropriation or further action by the legislature, to implement recommendations identified in the Groundwater Recharge Action Plan that result in new infrastructure and institutional mechanisms in place that provide for the ability to create an additional groundwater recharge capacity of 10 million acre feet by December 31st, 2035. The bill has passed the Senate and is pending referral in the Assembly. The next slide, water in general. AB 676, Water General State Policy, would narrow the definition of domestic use to mean the substance of human beings and household conveniences, the care of household livestock and animals, care of household gardens, and deliveries of water by community water systems, public, municipal, and other water agencies. The bill passed the Assembly, has been assigned to the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Water. AB 779, groundwater adjudication. The UCLA Law and Policy Center is the sponsor of this legislation, reflecting the research and writing of the second-year law students. This legislation would require the plaintiff and defendant involved in an adjudication to forward all relevant pleading and briefing materials to the Department of Water Resources after a decision has been rendered by the court. The bill would require DWR to post the documents on its internet website. The bill would require the court to invite a representative from DWR, or the State Water Resources Control Board to provide technical assistance or expert testimony on the amount of water in the basin subject to adjudication, equitable and sustainable pumping allocations for the basins, and sustainable groundwater management best practices and recommendations. The bill would require the court to take into account the needs of small farmers and disadvantaged communities when entering a judgment. The bill passed the Assembly and has been ordered to the Senate. That's the extent of the water bills. The next slide goes to open meetings. The RELF, or the Brown Act, requires, with specified exceptions, that all meetings of the legislative body of a local agency be open, and that all people be permitted to attend and participate. The act authorizes the legislative body of a local agency to use teleconferencing for its meetings, subject to certain requirements, including, among others, public notice of and access to each teleconference location and posting of a meeting agenda at each of the teleconferences locations. Existing law until January 1, 2026 exempts a local agency from these requirements if at least a quorum of its members participate from a singular physical location and other requirements are met. A number of governmental agencies are interested in reintroducing legislation for the remote attendant provisions that were available under the COVID emergency orders. The Assembly Local Government Committee Chair informed members of the Assembly who approached her that legislation related to remote attendance for local agency open meetings would not pass through her committee. Legislative offices were understandably reluctant to introduce legislation contrary to the wishes of the policy chair. The next page, next slide. The California Special Districts Association has put forward AB 557 by Assemblyman Hart. This measure extends the AB 361 provisions indefinitely. As enacted in 2021, AB 361 creates until January of 2024 an exemption to teleconference public meetings requirements for local legislative bodies during an emergency. AB 557 would extend the AB 361 abbreviated teleconference provisions when a declared state of emergency is in effect or in other situations related to public health as specified indefinitely. The bill would also extend the period for a legislative body to make findings related to the continued state of emergency and social distancing to not later than 45 days after the first teleconference meeting and every 45 days thereafter in order to continue to meet under the abbreviated teleconferencing procedures. This change provides legislative bodies with an additional 15 days in each instance. When the California Special Districts Association moved forward with AB 361 last year, it initially wanted to provide flexibility to teleconferencing requirements during a proclaimed local emergency as opposed to a state emergency. However, the association received stern opposition from the Assembly Speaker's office on this regard. Hence, the provisions of AB 361 only apply when the governor proclaims a state of emergency. In recent conversations with leadership, CSDA states that the association received the same reaction to any suggestion of allowing this flexibility to be utilized during a proclaimed local emergency. The bill has passed to the Senate and is in the Senate Governance and Finance jurisdiction. SB 411, another open meeting bill authored by Senator Portantino, to authorize a legislative body to use alternative telecom similar to the emergency provisions indefinitely and without regard to a state emergency. The bill, however, defines legislative body to mean a board, commission, advisory body of a local agency, the membership of which the board, commission, and advisory body is appointed, and which board, commission, or advisory body is otherwise subject to this chapter. The bill has passed through the Senate and has been referred to the Assembly Committee on Local Government. SB 537, Senator Becker, states the intent to enact subsequent legislation that expands local government access to hold public meetings through teleconferencing and remote access. This bill has passed through the Senate and is awaiting referral in the Assembly. AB 1275 by Arambula would authorize the recognized statewide community college student organization and other student community college organizations to use teleconferencing for their meetings without having to post agendas at all the teleconference locations, identify each teleconference location in the notice and the agenda, and make such teleconference locations accessible to the public. And 4, require that a quorum of the student organization's members participate from a singular physical location. This bill has passed the Senate and in the Senate Rules Committee for assignment. Mr. Chairman and members, that's the report. And I'm open for whatever questions you may have.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for the senator?
I have a question. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Polanco. During the presentation, though, I noticed that there was a section we missed because of the dates for the electrical vehicle availability for the district.
Yes, that
it got
that was
closed,
for the,
or it was just something that we missed.
no, I think it was given the previous years. There is still an open process for this new round of funding.
Yeah.
I believe it referenced previous year.
Yeah, and when we talked about electrical vehicles last year and at our retreat, we talked about, I think there was some discussion about the desire to apply and electrify the district, and I think it didn't make the priority list at the time.
Okay.
So we collectively decided to not focus on greening and our fleet and that kind of stuff. I remember because I was kind of adamant about it.
Well, something which I would add to that, Director Hawkins, is that I actually brought up that I went to one of the sessions on the move to the electrics and really zero emission, because it could be electric or hydrogen. And I brought this up during our budget discussion at the budget committee. Because the law, there's a law going into effect next year where we kind of have a window where we might be able to purchase the gas vehicles this year, but starting next year, it starts to become a little bit more difficult. So staff was going to look into what we may want to do as our fleet, because of course part of the concern of the panel at the conference was that, particularly for your medium and your heavy duty vehicles, there's really not one-to-one replacements available yet that can do the same job. So it might be beneficial for us to especially look at our fleet to see if we might need to replace something this year before those new changes go into effect. But yeah, we will be under new regulations starting in April that's going to require that as we start to phase out vehicles in the future, a certain proportion of that has to be in the zero emission field. So I think it's going to be something we're going to have to adopt one way or another, regardless of whether we prioritized it at our last retreat or not. But I did bring that to the finance committee as we were looking at the capital budget in particular, and I know Bill and the rest of the staff is looking into the specifics on that requirements and what leeway we might have. But I appreciate the question. I think it's an important topic.
I'd like to just add that we are looking into what the specific requirements are and what latitude, if any, we have, and then we'll come back with some recommendations.
Yeah. I had two things. One is I want to acknowledge Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia out of Coachella Valley. and the work that he's doing to really become the water expert in the legislature. And Senator Polanco, let him know I said that in public. The work that he's doing to modernize not just Coachella, understand the California water system, the rights that Coachella Valley has, and the role that it plays, not just locally in form of agriculture but internationally because of where it's and the rights that they have there, and as well as Imperial, and what he's kind of done to demonstrate and take the leadership for water is definitely impressive. The other thing that I think that's impressive, if you notice that as a part of his legislation, as a part of the governor's focus, despite there being shortfalls in a number of areas in this budget, and some people would say right sizing of the budget. Some people would say, curtailing some things. I don't know which side everybody is on of that. But one of the priorities that maintains it so is the investment in the workforce, in the water workforce. And one of the things that was announced last year because of the work that we've done, particularly with IE Works, that there was a grant that the California Municipal Utilities Agency received of over $4 million in order to replicate and create a program on the statewide level based off of the model that we created here in IE Works. So you'll see some pop-ups and studies in the Central Valley as well as far as San Diego in order to encourage and bring a new generation of individuals into the water workforce, and part of his legislation is doing that. The last comment that I would like to make is regarding the meeting rules. I don't want to make any surprises. I think that the current rules as they exist were made in the time of, I think, the typewriter. I'm not sure if the fax machine was in existence yet. But we definitely know we don't use fax machines anymore. I think for the legislature, I would respectfully ask the chairwoman, I can't put anything forward, but that we take up for consideration a position on the open meeting rules. And I respectfully ask that we have a more comprehensive discussion of those pieces of legislation, and where we, as at least per the chairwoman's pleasure, sit in the committee regarding those rules. Again, I'm one that thinks that we might need to modernize and come to, I think sticking them on doors and putting the agenda on doors and places I think it worked well in the time of the horse and buggy, but we're in the time of emails and text messages, so we might need to do some things to modernize and bring the next generation of policymakers in there. So I definitely want to acknowledge, and according to the chairwoman's pleasure, have some conversation about that.
I agree, and we should talk about it more in detail as well as other bills that Senator Polanco talked about today. I do see that, we brought up the whole electric vehicle initiatives that are expiring in 2023. So I do appreciate the fact that we are having that discussion and bringing the possibility of transitioning some of our fleets. I don't know, like you mentioned, if there's a one-on-one, but I'm certainly do think that there are some light duty vehicles or trucks that we can replace if there is going to be reimbursement. I think we should totally take advantage of that, and also the charging stations, because really we are moving in that direction with $5 gallon prices with this administration.
Any other questions?
Can I make a closing comment? I think it's imperative that we that the board, that we engage with Eduardo Garcia as director Hawkins makes reference. He is the lead in the two. There's really three bonds. I think that Eduardo Garcia's bond is the vehicle that will allow for our input. The district should identify what the priorities are. We should not shy away from including monies that will be available. We're not the only district that's going to be impacted. I think that there's fleets up and down in local government, water districts, etc., utilities, etc., that we ought to give some serious consideration. Meeting with Eduardo, getting our ask, the districts, these are our needs. We'd like to have these incorporated into the discussion as the bond bill is being written. And I will take directions from you all on setting up the meeting and allowing for us to engage not Eduardo, but there'll be members in the governor's office that will touch bases with also the water agency that will definitely. I mean, there's a hub here of folks that we get to enroll to support the needs and the capital expenditures, as well as this whole electrification of the fleets. There are numerous water districts that have made requests on that.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Senator, for being with us tonight. We do appreciate it. If there's no further
President
questions.
Young, just a point of clarification. Is that then a recommendation for the External Affairs Committee to move forward with prioritizing what next steps are going to happen? I just want to make sure that we don't have staff that's waiting to hear something or action should be required.
I will leave it up to the chairwoman to plan that for a future agenda with staff.
Okay, so that would be through External Affairs.
Yeah, they need to handle it and bring it back to us for further discussion.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Senator. We appreciate it.
Just one last thing, just really quick.
Sure.
We are more than willing to also provide feedback on a regular basis on the discussions that we're having with Senator Polanco on issues that are of interest to the board.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So that will take us to the consent calendar. Before I entertain a motion, I do want to have Bill, I'm going to put you on the spot, but could you just explain to the board all the hard work that Al did on 10, 11, 12, and 13? Because I do think it does need to be made to light, because it was quite a wonderful presentation which he gave to the Finance Committee. So I would like the rest of the board to hear it. If you could just give a little,
be happy to
build him up here of the good work that he did on these agreements.
I'd be happy to do that. On all four of these agreements that we're talking about, each of them are a 3-year agreement. They were done, 2 of them through an RFP process. One of them we actually used what's called a piggyback agreement, and the piggyback was for our gasoline and diesel. The state of California has a contract in place. We were able to leverage off the state of California contract by getting the same terms and condition and purchasing power that the state of California has. And so our policy allows us to do that, and this is one of the first times that we've used that particular provision, and I really am grateful for Al having the creativity in that direction. It alone will save us several $1,000s a year going that direction, and I think that was an outstanding effort. Under the landscape maintenance, what we ended up doing is we did an RFP, and we ended up having multiple firms participate, and they did job walks that took 2 days to go to all the particular sites within the district to make sure that we picked up everything that needed to be landscaped. And through that effort, we're going to be saving a couple $1,000s a month. And then the last one is our janitorial service. Again, we had a large interest by a number of firms, and in the end, we're saving about $1,200 a month in the janitorial. So each one of these efforts that he did ended up resulting in cost savings, and was really following the best practices. And so I really commend the great work that he did, and like to think that there'll be more of these to come.
Absolutely, and thank you to Al. I know he's not here, but please give him our sincere thanks, because he did a really great job on all four of these.
He'll be happy to hear of.
So I just wanted the rest of the board to
appreciate it.
kind of get that, because we were very impressed in finance with these items. So with that, unless anyone has anything to pull, is somebody willing to make a motion?
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second to adopt the consent calendar.
Thank you. I'll take a oral vote. Director Garcia?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Moore?
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins?
Yes.
And President Young?
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, that brings us to, we have one business matter for tonight. And Madam Secretary, you were going to explain this one for us, correct?
Yes, that's
Thank you.
correct. So thank you, Board, for allowing me to come before you tonight. I'm going to give you a very brief overview on some changes that have occurred in Aqua related to elections. So this year, in 2022, bylaws were changed that then instituted new elections processes for Aqua. So there will be 2 concurrent elections happening at the same time, one for president and vice president, and also for the regional board elections for 2024 year. So basically the changes include that the agency has to designate a voting representative by June 16th. And if you do not designate, if the board does not designate it by the deadline, the general manager then becomes the voting delegate by default. Also, one of the major changes, and just to kind of give you a little side note, I did attach the changes, the bylaw changes, as an attachment to your board packet, so that you could look at all those changes in detail. But in a nutshell, it's basically you've got to discuss who you'd like to appoint as a voting delegate to Aqua by a deadline. The elections committee then presents a ballot by July 17th to that voting delegate. That includes all the eligible candidates, and then you are voting electronically. So there is no voting at the fall conference anymore. There's no nominations that happen during the fall conference. Everything is expected to be done by then. And so what they wanted was to eliminate floor nominations during the fall conference. So that's attempting to eliminate that. Members of Aqua elect president and vice president by voting electronically. And then the results of the elections are formally announced on September 27th. Let's see. If a candidate does not receive the majority of votes for president or vice president, there is a runoff. New ballots are sent out on September 26th with the 2 candidates that receive the highest vote. And then the runoff ballots are submitted. So it's all intended to be completed by the fall conference, so that at the fall conference, the regional representatives and the president, vice president are announced. So at this point, the timeline was also included so you could see more clearly on what the expectation is, what the deadlines are. But essentially, your deadline would be June 17th, June 16th to nominate a voting delegate, and then have that discussion to see who you want to nominate for that. I think that's, pretty much at this point, we're going to recommend that the board have some discussions on who they would like to nominate as a voting delegate, and then request that myself submit the form to Aqua.
No, I just had a question. Our next meeting, I'm looking here, is June 15th.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so we could take, Mr. President, is
We could, but I was hoping that we could have it possible, just so that we have that leeway. I mean, yes, we could do it on the 15th, but that's cutting it very close.
We would essentially be missing the mail for overnight mail to get there by the 16th. So I mean, we could have a special meeting if you wanted to discuss
no.
that one item.
Yeah.
Mr. President, I'm following your lead.
Well, I just, because of the change and they did make us all aware of this, and I do thank you, Channing, for reminding me of it too, because I almost forgot about it again. But yeah, so we do have to delegate someone or just go with the general manager as the default. But so I just kind of wanted to kind of bring it to the board. Is there anyone who wants to do it? Do you want me to do it as president? Do you want the general manager to do it? But we do need to make a decision on that because it is this new process to where it won't be done at the conference anymore. So.
Mr. President, I may say I would prefer it if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I second. I think that's a motion. How was the discussion?
Yeah, I was really hoping someone would volunteer, but that's again, I just wanted to, I mean, if you guys want me to do it, that's fine. I can do it. But again, I just wanted it to have a opportunity in case anyone was interested. So,
I motion.
We made a motion.
Yeah, I
we made
think
a
so.
motion, yep.
Well, I don't think it needs to be like an actual vote. I mean,
Okay.
we can just take the. It is.
Well, I mean,
We're,
or
what,
outside it.
I should say we take a vote.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a first and a second.
Okay. Yep, that's a first from Vice President Jenkins, a second from Board Member Hawkins to appoint President Young as the voting delegate to Aqua and request Board Secretary Dominguez to submit the delegate selection form to Aqua. Just as a quick side note, Interim General Counsel did ask the question as to whether or not there was an alternate. There is only one that's designated on the form, and that's probably because they give you sufficient enough time to be able to vote electronically. So I'll take an oral vote. Director Garcia?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Moore?
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins?
Yes.
And President Young?
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you all for the extra work. All right. So now we'll come to board reports. I would like to jump in first because I did want to take an opportunity to highlight the fantastic job that our external affairs team, Socorro and Mary Jo, did this past, I guess it was 2 weekends ago with the Solar Challenge. Director Moore and myself were there. It rained pretty heavily on us, which I wasn't quite expecting, but thankfully you all had tents and covered areas. But I just wanted to thank both of you for a job well done. It was an excellent event. It was really great to see all of the teams and to help hand out the awards. Amazingly, it's like my first time ever making it to one of these. Typically, I haven't been able to go in the past for whatever reason, but I must say I was pleasantly surprised to actually be able to be there and to see all of the hard work paying off. Our locally supported team, Rialto High School, I think got third overall, if I believe, and they were so excited, and their boat was quite cute too. Kind of had like a Cars theme kind of motif to it, but I do want to thank both you and Mary Jo. You guys were doing an outstanding job, and just as always you do. But I was just really pleased at how it went. It went a little longer because they had a delay because of lightning of all things, which again, I showed up in shorts and district shirt, but I should have wore pants because it was raining so hard. And Director Moore can say a little more if he likes, but I think we were both just very impressed. It was good to see all of the teams there, and it sounds like we had a lot of new teams this year, including Colton High School. Maybe one day they can get Bloomington High School in there too. But it was really a fantastic event, and I just wanted to highlight the hard work both of you gals did on it. It was a great event, and it seemed like everybody had a really great time. So thank you. So with that, anybody have any reports?
I have a report.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I do appreciate you acknowledging the external affairs. They do a lot of work on after hours and even during the day to doing these events. So thank you so much for acknowledging. Actually, they really do work really hard and always strive to make the district look good at all different levels. But speaking about external affairs, I just saw that we have a posting right now on the that just came up on Facebook that 6 local schools have received $1,200 each through the EduBucks program, and all 6 winning classrooms will be using the money to send their 5th grade students on a science camp field trip to Skyland Ranch in Beaumont, where they're going to be learning about the importance of water and the environment. The funds were provided through the West Valley Water District's partnership with the Water Education Water Awareness Committee, WEWAC, whose mission is to promote water use efficiency and to increase public awareness of the importance of water in Southern California. And the 6 winning classrooms are Fitzgerald Elementary, Hugh Banks Elementary, Kodiak Elementary, Morgan Elementary, Morris Elementary, and Trapp Education. So I really do like seeing how we are still doing community outreach and also at the level of the elementary schools. So congratulations to those schools. And that ends my report.
Jaden, you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a report on my last meeting and graduation from the WELL program, the Water Education for Latino Leaders. We had our graduation May 23rd and 24th. It was a really good event. I got to meet a culmination of 17 of us elected officials throughout the state, all participated in this program to learn about water throughout the state. I thought it was really a good program. I would encourage my colleagues to participate as one of the few where you're able to participate with other local electeds. There were just 2 of us in water, and then a number of them city councils and board of education, and just the opportunity to network and kind of get the perspectives from individuals who are in more dense urban settings or rural settings like in Central California, and the different issues that impact each part of the state. During our visit, one of the key individuals that was a part of it that I recruited to join me was Councilman Rafael Trujillo, who was former West Valley member. He went with me as well. We lobbied and talked to Assembly Member Ramos. He's opened up, and we had a great time. We have a event that we have coming up. I'm going to talk to you all about. He did commit to working for us to put together a water forum. We're going to have, it looks like we're going to have a focus particularly on indigenous impacts to our region, and particularly indigenous communities with water supply. So look out for the fall of 2023. One last thing that was of importance, I had a opportunity to go and view the Delta. So the Delta is a major project in Northern California. As you know, in the Sacramento River area, they're making an expansion. It's going to be $16 billion. One side says there's jobs. Another side says there's some environmental impacts. Another side says, rich farmers. So we build it underground and not above ground and have to get to a $16 billion price tag instead of being more efficient. But hey, that's how water works. But it was great to see that there is approval for this progress, as you know, up north, and being able to increase our water supply and stop, to be able to keep from the snow melt that happens from Northern California. This project has been critically important. So they took us on a tour of the local communities there that would be impacted, and gave us a different perspective from the agricultural interests, as well as individuals who worked there, who worked in agriculture. they also gave us the perspective from the environmental route with the Delta Smelt. And they, I don't know if you all have got to see them up close and personal. But, well, it's an important invasive species that is not. No, I'm not saying it I'm not saying it in any way. If you know about the smelt, you know that it's not a natural fish to that area. It is, but it plays a key role in the environment where it is an indicator of the health of the overall water environment. And so, but they took us to the farm where they have the smelt and they do the breeding. They also showed us the salmon, which, has a different history in the indigenous communities that lived in there for a long time. So it was a good way to culminate in dealing with a project that's really going to impact our state and the future. And so it was really good to be there and learn about water from the lens of with these other elected officials. And thank you to my colleagues for allowing me the opportunity to explore it and learn so much about the issues of water throughout our state. So that's it. I graduated, though.
Well, congratulations for completing your and I guess it is
it's a fellowship
or
it's
fellowship,
a fellowship,
yeah, whatever you want to
so
call
I'm
it.
what they call a wello.
A
now.
wello? Okay.
I'm a wello. I'm official.
Well, congratulations, and I did that Delta tour. Gosh, when I first got on the board,
Yeah.
I think, and I think the cost was $4 billion then.
Yeah.
So it just shows you how much it's changed.
No, well, it changed because they're going below.
Oh no, it was a tunnel then too.
Yeah,
but
the
still,
tunnel
just shows you how much the inflation in construction is these days. But I'm glad that you had that opportunity. It's really, you can read a lot about the Delta, but when you're actually standing on the levees, you get a whole different perspective. And I would encourage all of our board members to avail themselves of any tours and opportunities, because it's very critical, because we do get a chunk of our water through the Delta, so that is a very important resource for us. But again, congratulations. Thank you. Anything from you, Dan or Kelvin?
Nothing from me, sir.
Okay. Kelvin?
No, I just wanted to commend the Public Affairs again for the event that went on with the solar boats. To see the excitement and the camaraderie of these young people who were just working together and cheering each other on, and just it was just inspiring to see that the networking and just how they just had a heart to just do this thing and to learn from each other and help each other. So I anticipate more schools getting involved. We'll definitely talk about it in different venues that I've gone to see if they can get people involved in that, get their classes involved in that. That's a great program. But it was a stellar performance. And like you said, it did rain, but even through the rain, it was a great time. So hats off to the Public Affairs for doing that.
All right. Well, before we move on to the other reports, I do want to just also do 2 things. One, Elvia has reached out to you as far as our budget workshop dates, so please respond to her if you haven't already. We are hoping to get that scheduled here pretty soon, because Bill wants to get his budget in place, and I don't blame him. So we are moving ahead full throttle for the workshop, and then ultimately the adoption of the budget in time for the end of this month, and preferably at the next meeting.
That would be great.
Yeah. And then the other item, too, I just want to make the board aware is that, and I know Van's out sick, so he wouldn't be here to give it, but we are, I believe Haiti is working with Mr. Larson for setting up a revisit of our board retreat. Probably fallish, maybe late autumn. We'll see what's available, but just so you're all aware that we are looking to schedule the next round of discussion, especially now that we'll have John here pretty soon. So I just wanted to put that kind of on everybody's back burner that at some point we will be reaching out to you about some potential dates. But we do want to try to schedule a follow-up workshop now that we have a little fuller of a team. So, all right, with that, we don't have a general manager's report, but Bill, can you just report out the one item for?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I would like to say that the item we're going to discuss is that the district entered into an RFP process for general counsel. And through the RFP process, we had over a dozen firms respond to us. We ended up selecting the top 4 firms for interviews, and there was an interview process. And tonight there was a deliberation in closed session, and the board has given direction to staff to enter into a contract discussion with the selected firm.
All right, and more to come on that front. All right, thank you very much. Legal, report out for closed session.
Thank you, President Young. The interim general counsel, outside counsel, and staff met with the board in closed session on the listed agenda items. No action was taken. Direction was given. That concludes my closed session report.
Okay, all right, and thank you, everybody. I know it was kind of a late evening tonight, but thank you very much to everybody, and you all have a good night. Thank you. We're adjourned.